All right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seriously picking you up, and I'm seriously picking myself up.
Fuck, everyone's seriously picking everyone up.
Okay, whatever the fuck.
Okay, whatever.
I mean, come on. This is just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
I can't sound worse than I did last time.
That's a fair point.
God, no.
So where are we, Curtis?
Where are we now?
Yeah.
Welcome,
Live
guys!
from New York! It's Saturday night!
Let's tone it down.
Do you know what? I believe you just read it out on mine.
I read it out on mine. Yeah, I read it out on everyone's.
We are in a hotel room. Let's try to keep it relatively low. There are probably people who would like to sleep at around this time.
It's 8:44.
I don't care.
Yeah, this kind of undercuts my whole live from New York Saturday night bullshit thing, because, you know, like...
Oh, wait, was that the joke? I'm sorry.
That was the joke.
I didn't get it, Curtis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no.
I'm really sorry that
Yeah, sorry about that. Also, this is totally not live. It has been pre-recorded. It has totally been pre-recorded.
Anyway, so what Curtis is trying and failing to say, because he's had quite a bit to drink so far...
Oh, you just blame it on that?
I'm going to turn my mic down a bit, because I'm maxing out constantly.
Okay, that might be a smart move.
Okay,
is that we are live from... Well, not live, but
live from GSA. It's Tuesday night. Or Wednesday night or Sunday night or whatever the fuck night we're doing.
Talk. You can cut me, don't worry.
You know,
anyway,
I'm not. I'm just going to keep that, because it's going to be really funny talking over what the fuck we're talking about.
Anyway, we are recording from the Geological Society of America meeting in Denver.
Or the Curtis Hotel near the Geological Society of America meeting. Children.
Yes, we're very specifically recording from the Curtis Hotel, because, you know, that's the kind of fucked up narcissistic
Because Curtis
Yes.
is only happy when he's inside Curtis.
So... It's going to be a little bit of a different podcast, because we're going to be recording in bits and pieces as we...
Yeah, our ideal goal here is to every single night that we're going to see talks, we're going to be recording afterwards to just discuss kind of the cool things that we're doing each week.
Right.
Well, each day. So, fuck. So as a result, this is going to be kind of a little bit disjointed, but we're going to...
Then again, when are we not?
When are we not, indeed? So we're going to be talking about various topics and things that we've been seeing at GSA.
Right.
And we might have a few guests. I think tomorrow we're going to have a guest, right?
We should do, but I mean, it's a northern twat, so...
Well, okay, wow. Jesus Christ, James.
It'd be great if it's not him, if it's someone else. I just insulted someone randomly.
That'd be really great, yeah.
That would, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, the first thing we saw at GSA was that giant fucking bear, right?
That giant fucking bear is the first thing we saw at GSA.
Yeah,
the peeping Tom bear, as Paula off mic has just yelled, is totally what we just saw.
Yes, it is a giant blue bear that is peeking through the front
So for
of the
anyone who
convention
hasn't
center.
been at the Denver Convention Center, the Denver Convention Center has a large glass wall
it's
at
the front of the building.
At the front of the building, in the main road. And there is a giant fucking blue bear that looks like it's peeking in, trying to steal the honey that is inside the fucking convention center.
Or something.
The honey this time, I guess, is us.
I guess we are the honey. That is the metaphor. We are the honey, and the bear is trying to steal us.
So, what did we see today, guys?
Well, I mean, it all depends on each individual person. We all kind of went to see different things. I kind of spent most of my time in the coevolution of Earth and life stuff, because that's kind of where my talk was, and I'm really not going to talk about that.
So, I saw some shitty talk about the end Ordovician mass extinction.
Yeah, that was
James, we already talked about not turning this into a soapbox and talk about our own research, and that also includes you fucking shitting on all of my research. So let's
I wouldn't shit on all of it, just the bits that I don't agree with.
Okay, yeah, like the majority. Okay,
no, actually,
gotcha.
I agree with most of it, because it kind of lends validity to my own research. So we're going to stop talking about this now.
Yeah,
so
good point.
we all mostly spent most of our time in that session, but I did go to a really cool couple of talks, one on beaver ponds.
Beaver ponds.
You
okay,
went
talk
to
about
beaver
this.
ponds?
Cool.
Yeah, there was a talk on beaver ponds and how they have affected sedimentation on some of the rivers in Yellowstone National Park. That was really cool. And then I also went to a cool talk that's looking at the Sheboygan River spelled with an S in Wisconsin.
Sheboygan,
Because Sheboygan, Michigan is spelled with a C.
Wait.
Yeah.
Isn't Sheboygan where the beer comes from in Wilfred?
Yeah, Sheboygan is where the beer comes from in Wilfred.
And looking at
Yeah.
Looking
Paula
at
off mic mentioning various information from Sheboygan.
yes, looking
I feel like
at
we should have set this up better.
probably looking at the Lake Michigan not river deltas, but the river mouths that are feeding into Lake Michigan, and looking at reclamation and reestablishment of what they should actually look like, and not the industry-dominated, just wrecked shorelines that they are right now.
If you're going to have a car factory, you might as well make it big.
Pretty much, yeah. So
enjoy your bankruptcy.
Those were the talks that I went to see that weren't the talks that you guys went to see.
I would say,
so.
seriously, we're just going to have a Detroit joke? I mean, Detroit's kind of already in such a shit show at this point. Is that
The
really...
Lions won today, okay?
Okay, fine.
Lions won.
That's all that really matters. Detroit is in shambles, but the Lions won.
Yes, because
as long
I don't
as the
live
opiate
in
of the
Detroit.
masses keeps working.
As long as the opiate of the masses does keep working.
No, we've won quite a few times. We're above 500, I think.
So, I guess we're setting this up right now where we're going to be talking about the coevolution papers.
And we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that we're familiar with because it was a session organized by our own colleagues.
Yes.
But regardless, I guess the one thing that I went to that was not part of that was a beta diversity estimate of the Endor Division mass.
Oh, yes, I want to hear about this.
Tell us about that.
Which, okay, so...
What is beta diversity, please?
Yes, this is where things get a little bit interesting. The very title of the talk is when things get a little interesting. So typically we talk about alpha diversity, which is, I guess, the species richness, or at least taxonomic richness, at a specific area. So if you have X number of species, or at least in this particular case, they're probably looking at genera, X number of genera at a specific area, that's your alpha diversity. Your gamma diversity is kind of like a global distribution of your alpha diversity. So at any given time, how many species do you have, or how many groups do you have? Beta diversity is an estimate of the interchange between localities. So whether or not, if you go from point A to point B, do you tend to change a lot of things?
So are you looking, is beta diversity a count of species you find in both, or species that you don't find in both?
Species that you don't find in both.
Okay.
So do you find a massive change between, I'm over here, now I'm over here, oh fuck, there's a whole bunch of different stuff.
You're quantifying the difference rather than similarity.
Exactly, quantifying the difference rather than similarity.
Okay.
And so they were looking at the beta diversity and other diversity curves over the Endor Division mass extinction event. And they were mining the PBDB and using a bunch of generic data, which we've discussed earlier that potentially fossil genera could potentially be paraphyletic. We discussed it, I guess, in our All of Its Descendants podcast, if we want to be citing fucking things.
It's the only one we ever do, because I guess it must be the best one.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
It's definitely got the best pun.
Yeah, it does really have one of its best puns. So, that's potentially an issue, at least as far as levels. But regardless, if we take the data at face value, we're also taking the beta at face value, I might add. But fucking semantics at that point. The interesting thing that they showed was that when they were doing it like at individual specimen by specimen based, they showed an increase in alpha diversity across the first extinction event and a decrease across the second, and a total decrease in beta diversity across the entire event. But if they subsampled so that they basically didn't treat each individual occurrence point as being like legitimate, but instead was like each 50,000 kilometers or something like that, and they subsampled that way, then they showed the pattern of a decrease in alpha diversity across the event, which is kind of what you'd expect in a mass extinction event, given that a mass extinction event is a culling of diversity through time.
The second the adding the buffer basically is accounting for fossil record bias. So that to me seems like the most.
Well, yeah, fossil record bias, and there's other potential issues that they were talking about, which is that if you treat each individual locality, there are some spatiotemporal issues where if you're better sampled, you're automatically going to have a lower beta diversity because of the basic ideas of what beta diversity is.
So this was at the genus level?
This was all at the genus level.
Okay.
Which is...
Well, that makes it extra interesting because that means that your beta diversity value should be suppressed.
But I want to go to their preferred interpretation,
okay,
which is at their buffered zone and at every other buffered zone. So if they actually treat it not as each individual locality, but as a series of areas. Alpha diversity they show decreasing through time, which again is a pattern you'd expect in a mass extinction event, whereas beta diversity shows the pattern that alpha diversity showed when they didn't buffer it, which is that it increases during the recovery period and then decreases again. So what they proposed that they were showing was kind of a graphical depiction, I guess, of the rise of the Hernantia fauna. That you see a lot, an increase in the weird diversity of groups, and then a decrease. I don't know. Maybe I'm reinterpreting this entirely wrong. But
I have no opinion on the matter. I didn't see the talk.
I'm trying to follow what he's saying. I'm trying.
Maybe
to be
we
fair, that's
shouldn't-
kind of how I felt throughout the talk.
Maybe we shouldn't go to the brewery before we do this.
No. This is exactly how we need to do
Amanda,
this, because that's how this fucking podcast works, Amanda.
I needed to.
I believe that the prevalence of alcohol was pretty much a stipulation on the creation of this particular
Holy
podcast.
shit! I need to do contracts
Fair
for you
enough.
guys.
Contracts?
Yeah.
What do you mean by fucking contracts?
You know, just contracts. Like, if you do this, you're out. If you do that, you're out. I get your firstborn.
You need stipulations?
Yeah, stipulations on who the
I
firstborn
thought
must
we're
be.
co-founders. We both came up with this idea.
Okay, Amanda, I claim rights to your firstborn.
Okay. You kind of forget the fact that I'm not having kids.
That, as far as you know, we're cutting that out.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of that was the one talk that I went to that I guess apparently I didn't explain properly. But yeah,
It happens. It happens.
They showed a decrease in general diversity of individual groups through time.
So they showed a decrease in alpha diversity, so total number of genera in this case did. So beta diversity decreased as well?
Beta diversity increased at the first pulse and then decreased at the second
So
pulse.
we saw differential extinction on the first time and then coordinated extinction the second time.
Yes.
Cool. That's actually
Oh,
interesting.
wait, sorry. I think I have it wrong.
Alternate-
Sorry,
so-
I think I have it wrong. It decreased at the first pulse and increased at the second
So
pulse.
it was
I have it wrong. So alpha and beta were correlated. At the, I apologize. I'm backing this up. This is me misremembering this. Because originally they had alpha diversity increasing and then beta diversity decreasing when they didn't average it. But the pattern that they haven't said when they averaged it was alpha diversity decreases the entire time.
Okay.
Beta
Total
diversity
number of
decreases, so you lose cosmopolity becomes a thing,
Okay.
and then you increase at the second pulse of extinction. So you become more endemic at the second pulse of extinction.
Well, I mean, and that makes sense. What we know from
Yeah,
the,
doesn't that fit with what we know?
Yeah,
it fits the general pattern that the
Yeah.
Endordivision mass extinction event has a period of extinction followed by a radiation period where the things that radiate kind of are everywhere, and then there's a second culling of those groups.
But the secondary culling is what separates the Ordovician from most of the other mass extinctions. Most of the other mass extinctions, what you get at the end of it is a few cosmopolitan species you get everywhere, and very little endemism, which is basically species limited to isolated areas. With you get the second pulse in the Ordovician sort of culls some of those endemic species. You don't tend to see that, and at least I'm thinking specifically of the Permian, where everything just gets fucked, and you've got Lystrosaurus everywhere.
The Permian is weird. I would say as far as everything gets fucked, maybe looking at the K, well, I guess we call it the KPM, but they originally called the KT. Whereas there's just like a singular pulse of extinction, and if you're fucked, and that's the way it goes. The Permian does seem to be a pulsed extinction where things go extinct at the first pulse, and then they go extinct at the second pulse, but maybe there's a period in between where things are okay. So I actually think...
But there's no recovery between pulses at the end Permian, right?
That I know of, I don't know.
Well, the pulses in the Impermian are difficult to sort of quantify. No, fuck, that's the wrong word. To interpret, because one is marine and the other's terrestrial.
Yeah.
Those are the pulses.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not the same taxa being affected each time.
That is true. And my mic just fell. Don't know how I was going to say.
So I guess, do you want to hear about the talk that I saw in your stead while you were at that
I
talk?
would love to hear the talk. that you
Okay.
heard.
So the talk that Amanda and I saw was looking...
The one that you caused stunned silence with.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
The talk that Amanda and I saw was looking at basically ecological niches. You can explain that because I fucking hate it.
The areas where animals can live, the habitats and various areas where animals
Do we want to
can
get this little terminology issue out of the way? I call it a niche. You call it a...
live. A niche.
Yeah, fuck you.
Okay.
And that sounds like something...
Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, I call it a fuck you.
It sounds like something you need to scratch, whereas mine sounds like a scientific terminology.
Yeah, no. I've got an itch I need to scratch.
Continue, please, James.
Okay. And So basically, what this was looking at was looking for conservatism within the niche of a single species or multiple individual species throughout time, from the last glacial maximum to the present day. And this is a core thing for most people looking at ecological stuff through time. The idea that the species should hopefully have the same niche throughout its entire lifespan. Otherwise, it's very difficult to quantify what's going on if this changes without any speciation event. And what they actually showed from a kind of
kind of what?
well, I mean, the first thing to kind of say, and I just realised first of all that I'm conglomerating two talks into one.
Okay.
So this talk very specifically, was looking at.
I don't want to talk about in 5 minutes.
Yeah. This talk very specifically was looking at whether the niche of a genus changes through time. So this wasn't looking at the species level, this was looking at the genus level. And it was tied very closely to whether we have Amanda, please.
Siliciclastic.
Thank you. Sedimentation or carbonate sedimentation. And basically what they showed was that if you had a no preference early on in your history as a genus, you are more likely to change to have a preference for siliciclastic or carbonate regimes throughout your lifespan. But if you had a strong preference for siliciclastic or carbonate regimes throughout your when you're early on, you're going to be stuck in that position. And this was interesting. So basically, it was saying that sometimes your sort of habitat stays the same throughout your lifespan, and sometimes it changes. It depends on what your history is.
Okay.
And so that was very interesting. There were two things I actually went across to Amanda while this talk was going on and asked her if she could figure out what my bugbear with this was. There were actually two things, one of which I didn't ask about, which was the fact that we know that there have been big overturns in sedimentary regime throughout geological history. And you've got big changes so that sometimes carbonates prevail and sometimes siliciclastics prevail. And basically, if you're looking at the genus level and you cross this boundary, either they go extinct or they're going to have to change. And so that was one thing. The thing I put my hand up when they asked about questions was I asked if they tested if their genera are monophyletic or if they just picked anything that had a decent record. I'm not entirely sure the question was fully understood, because the reply I got was like, "Oh yes, definitely. If we had a good record for a number of million years and we had a good sample, we used it."
Okay, so then they just used things that had a good record.
Yeah. So and to my mind, there are problems there if you're getting a polyphyletic or a paraphyletic genus, to use the quote marks you can't see. Essentially what you're doing is you're gonna get weird results because you're not sampling the entire thing accurately. But it was an interesting. I think it was an interesting talk that shared a very important thing, which is you can't broad brush strokes how things are going to react to stuff.
So getting, I guess, into that, one thing that I'd seen that I thought was pretty cool was there was a talk on, I guess, woody plants that was trying to look at this issue of niche conservatism. So seeing whether or not things actually do have a similarly conserved niche. And it was trying to get it at more like a geographic range size.
Right.
So it was looking at like the basic studies that Jablonski had done with like mollusks generally have these sort of generally large range size compared to trilobites, which seem to have very endemic range sizes. And he was looking at, well, okay, if this is the case, then is there potentially a phylogenetic signature almost of dispersibility? That is there a potential that the dispersal ability of an organism is the thing that is phylogenetically conserved that is affecting its range size? And so they mapped out dispersibility by sort of looking at like initial range size versus full range size, and they mapped it out giving an average time ratio, and that was sort of a rate that they gave. And then they assumed a Brownian motion evolution pattern, so that effectively things are evolving by a Brownian pattern. So does anyone, like, as far as an explanation for Brownian motion, I mean, it's a basic kind of
stochastic.
It's a stochastic random model for evolution. Well, it's a stochastic model for everything, but it's often used for evolution.
It's basically general diffusion from your central point, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, considering your central point at this specific point for this being your rate, they tried to see whether or not there was like a conservatism across that rate. And what they found is that if you map that onto a tree phylogenetically, there wasn't. It was completely random. There was no phylogenetic signature for your dispersibility. That everything was just kind of the same.
That's pretty interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, that's fascinating in and of itself. And so what they gleaned from that is that dispersibility alone is not the thing that could potentially be fixing range size, and that there might not be a phylogenetic signature for range size, at least as far as dispersibility is concerned. And they even correlated it with a few other things that might affect range size or dispersibility, and they showed that these things aren't correlating meaningfully anyway in the fossil record.
Interesting.
It was a very cool talk.
Did they didn't look at differences in allopatric versus other forms of speciation or anything?
They weren't looking at it specifically in speciation forms. They were specifically looking at it as far as the population structure changing through time.
Okay, that's cool. I mean that's got influences for other work that's been done on planktonic versus benthic larval forms and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, I think it potentially has a influence for a lot of things, because I think there's a lot of characteristics that are potentially correlated with range size that might not actually be correlated meaningfully with any sort of change in range size. I think it's a potentially interesting pattern to see that things, generally speaking, expand to a range size at a given rate, with despite the fact that there might be phylogenetically very distinct. I mean, beyond that, I guess a few other things. And I know we don't usually like to talk about friends of people.
It's a special case this time.
Special case this time is GSA. Alicia Stegall's paper on competition and invasions I thought was pretty cool.
Okay, I missed half of that because I had to nip out and then come back in.
Yeah. You nipped out at that time? At that point?
I went looking for Derek.
Okay. Yeah, at that point, that paper was pretty interesting because you did some ecological niche modeling and some ecological parameters about sort of invasive species. And she noted that when things invade in, the pattern that seems to hold is kind of interesting, in that you take things that could immediately sort of disperse everywhere, and they seem to kind of lock in one place. So at the threat of invasion, the effect is so much that it almost like destroys the Gleasonian response of most ecological systems, and that things remain more locked than they used to be. And so instead, also they showed like a heightened kind of like ecological stability, almost as though it was fighting against the invasion, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then the other thing, sorry, you the other thing?
Oh no, I was just gonna say. Also, I met Bob Bacher today, which was awesome.
I was going to say there was something I needed to talk about next, which you missed, Amanda. And then I was going to say, do you want to tell us about your?
Well,
you gotta go.
You really don't want to walk.
No, she really doesn't want to walk.
Not really, but we can.
I really don't think she wants to walk.
No, that's okay.
I mean, you can head out. Why don't you talk about everything you got, and then you head out?
Oh, that's all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got. I mean, everything that you guys are talking about, I was there for. I mean, I don't have anything to add, so.
Why don't you whatever you want to talk about right now?
I got nothing.
You got a cat.
I do have a cat.
And Bob Bacher saw your cat.
Yes, it was kind of embarrassing. My mom knit me a little model of my cat, and Bob Bacher happened to see it, and I took it out to show him, and he's like, "So your cat is how did he put it? I don't remember. It was
badly stuffed."
Badly stuffed.
No, it was like
no, it was badly stuffed.
Well,
was exact words.
Oh, I thought he said
no. He didn't say anything misshapen. He just said, "So your cat is badly
stuffed." Yes, that's right.
And
yes.
then I
yes,
said it's a cat weasel.
It is a cat weasel. Yes.
Queasel.
Yes. Queasel.
Yeah.
So that was my day today.
I did like Adam's comment that you can't really say weasel without smiling. So
it's true.
And that positive.
Do you know, when I was a kid, I had two words: weasel and cooker. Cooker if it was mechanical, weasel if it wasn't.
Well, there you go. So you need to pop out?
I gotta go.
Okay, we'll cut this short.
Being loud is fun.
Indeed it is, James.
Okay.
Indeed it is. We don't really care. Anyway, dude, it's day 2.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and we've got a guest.
Yes, we do.
Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi.
Awesome. That is a great introduction, dude.
Speaking
Seriously.
to the mic, Dave.
I don't need any introduction.
Oh, you don't need any introduction. Yeah, well, Mr. Palaeocast, Mr. My Shit Don't Stink, huh? Anyway, come on, man.
Yeah, fucking carry us for a bit.
Yeah, carry us for a bit. We've been doing all this heavy work.
I can't carry you guys.
Carry us.
The whole thing about
I'm offended
Palaeocast
by
is
that.
we get other people on, so I don't have to do the talking.
I'm
actually really dull.
So the secret of Palaeocast is that you've gotten all these other people because secretly you just don't want to talk.
No, seriously, that's true.
Okay. Well, man, seriously, what have you been looking at, man?
What in terms of?
As far as this whole GSA, like, what stood out to you?
I'm just.
What is this? You're just relishing at the fact that he said he doesn't talk, and now I've had to.
Interviewing him, and in like the friendliest Spanish Inquisition imaginable.
Hey man, how's it going? By the way, do you want me to apply
Tickle
these
death?
clamps? It'll be good. It'll be fine. It'll be great. Do you like electricity? You don't? That's fine.
We have an Amish jail just for you.
Oh man. So anyway, no, seriously, you've been running around, you've been doing interviews, like the cool stuff you've been putting up for Palaeocast is really awesome. Like,
Oh, thank you very much.
yeah,
I've just been doing just general interviews with everyone that I can get my hands on. Anything that sounds vaguely interesting or kind of stuff that people don't really, well, it doesn't really get out there. The kind of research, the weird stuff, I don't know, just the things that I find interesting and.
And, you know, I agree with you. It's kind of like what's great about GSA is there's so many things that are going on at that point that you can just kind of look around and see all the various minutia, the weird things that may not get like the high impact or the high media coverage, but is really fascinating stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely. But I've got to go to SVP in a bit though, and that's going to be more the crowd-pleasing vertebrates. I'm not
Well,
looking forward to it.
you can come and see my poster at SVP.
I could have stayed and heard you talk at GSA.
That's true. My talk is probably going to be better than my poster.
It'll be on
But my
chickens.
poster has really pretty pictures.
You're
Who's-
talking.
who's
Senior
in your
Boy.
talk?
That's true.
Amanda.
My talk has Senor Pollo. What, James?
Nothing. It's okay.
He just asked who's in your talk,
I need
which I'm
that
assuming
for
is
my
not Senior
ringtone.
Pollo. I'm assuming it's probably him.
No,
because that's the only reason he would
No.
ask that.
No.
I have a cat in my talk.
No, I was actually referring to Senor Pollo because I wanted her to say it so that I could get that for my ringtone.
Okay.
I have Senor Pollo in my talk.
Okay. Wait. Let's get a little bit of a second pause so that we can cut this out, and then just with the greatest Antonio Banderas impression you can possibly give.
Taco,
Ready?
taco, 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 taco.
Senor Pollo.
Yes. Yes, Senor Pollo. And we probably are just fucking horribly racist at that point.
Yeah, probably.
You can't be
I
racist
assume.
against the Spanish. They're not a race.
I'm not sure
I'm
that
fairly
that's true.
certain that that's completely inaccurate.
No, they're all just European.
Okay, you're going that
You don't
angle.
understand. We
They're
Hispanic isn't a thing.
Actually, she has a point.
No, what? After the Second World War, we stopped having races in England. I mean, Europe.
We stopped having races in Europe.
God damn it, that sounds really bad. Cut that bit out.
Now, as an Englishman, I have to apologise to James.
Okay, so this is the formal English apology for James Lambsdale.
From a fucking person from Manchester. Apologising for England.
To be fair, aren't you the person? Aren't you the culture that gives us the worst footballers in like the entire world?
What?
It's also the culture that gave you happy slapping and gang rape.
Yeah. All these wonderful
That's
Manchester
A
traditions.
staple of my youth. I kind of grew out of it about 13, though.
Yeah,
he
it's
was
the
too
whole
big for
Clockwork
the
Orange
wrestle to the
thing.
ground anymore.
Jesus.
So talks, guys.
Talks, yeah. Let's stop
Oh.
mentioning rape as much as we usually. Anyway.
Yeah, no one mentioned the rape.
Oh God.
So what talks did you see today, Curtis?
Well, wow, that was okay. Yeah, sure. What talks did you see today, Curt? Anyway, I started the morning looking at. Oh, well, you doing the little fuck off thing? Yeah. Okay. That doesn't really play well on an audio podcast.
I know it's not the point.
I know the point was just to tell me to fuck off.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's fine when it's not directed at me.
I think. I think like pretty much everyone else here, I started the day at the Lagerstatten talks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I saw Derek Briggs's talk on the Ordovician stuff, which was all pretty cool.
Yep, 3 very different, very interesting Lagerstadt.
Yeah, and I think he emphasized that the interesting thing about this stuff is that there's a continuum, so there's multiple different types of things going on at each individual interval. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And then stayed through. I didn't kind of started to tune out at the I don't know, James, if you paid more attention, the geochemistry and carbonate stuff for why there might be
the Rob Gaines stuff.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It was talking basically about reasons for why you get preservation, why it's so prevalent in the Cambrian, and it was to do with ocean chemical levels and levels of anoxia, and that's why when you get exceptional preservation after the Cambrian, they tend to be very deep offshore, where you get those sort of environments reproduced. It's just that they're not as widespread as they were in the Cambrian.
What I thought was really cool about that talk was that it fits in really nicely with the fact that during the Cambrian, we've got all of this, Precambrian bedrock exposed, and it fits in really nicely with the fact that there is nothing on land, and so you're just weathering off a bunch of shit, and that's why you get different types of a different mode. I don't want to say mode of preservation, but the geochemistry
a very
is
different preservation regime.
Yes,
because once you have
that's the
things
word.
that are holding the sediment in place, suddenly the whole game changes.
Yeah, and once you cover up this I guess neo-proterozoic or proterozoic basement,
Yeah.
you change the entire geochemistry of the
It
ocean.
potentially explains what some people have referred to as the taphonomic window as an explanation for the Cambrian kind of faunas exploding on the scene. That there's just a brief period of time where we can finally preserve these things. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and they tied the closing of this window to what they call the Great Unconformity. And this is a period of uplift and erosion that they believe created the mass amount of sediment that covered most of the basement.
Which you can see in Arizona.
Okay, yeah.
Now-
It's the base of the Grand Canyon.
I do believe the Great Unconformity was the Land Before Time 9.
Yeah. Well, that's when...
Let's not kid ourselves. It stopped after 2.
Wait, you fucking acknowledge any movie beyond Land Before Time 1? I'm pretty sure
I have
Don
the
Bluth was not
VHSs
involved in any
I
of
have
those.
VHSs up to 5.
I thought he was involved in the second one. Was he not?
No.
Those were all direct-to-video.
Steven Spielberg and Don Bluth were the first one only.
Yeah.
Did the original Land Before Time come out in cinemas?
Yeah, it was cinemas
did,
in the 80s. It was Don Bluth. So Don Bluth, do you know anything about Don Bluth's career?
No.
All right,
We're
so
going to find out.
Don Bluth was Fuck you. Don Bluth was originally one of the Disney people, and in the 70s, he became very disaffected with Disney, and so he splintered off with a lot of other Disney animators to make his own company. And that's where you get All Dogs Go to Heaven, Land Before Time, and The Rats of Nim.
Oh, I forgot. That's a good fucking movie.
Rats and
Great
Nim was the
fucking
first
movie.
thing I watched when I got Netflix.
It's a great fucking movie. It's just ridiculously dark and creepy.
Yeah.
Like good children's entertainment used to be, when failure was a possibility and
like
death
the
was
water-
a certainty.
Like the Watership Down movie.
Yeah. I feel like we drifted slightly. Anyway, so I stayed in the Lagerstadt and talked for a while. A lot of the Lagerstadt stuff was a lot of, this is really cool and this is super well preserved, and I kind of started to fade out because there wasn't much else going on besides really pretty specimens and pretty pictures.
Here's a new Lagerstadt. This is what it's got in it. Here's another new Lagerstadt. This is what it's got in it.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was like a advertisement for this particular locality. Like, hey, this is all the cool things that our research is giving you. And I think there's importance to the whole, like, this is the first time we've ever seen this, or hey, this is cool that we can see these structures. But I feel like it almost, at some points, paleontology becomes limited by the idea that that's the most important thing that it can do, and that's stamp collecting. Paleontology can do so much more than just that. So then beyond that, I guess I went to the complete polar opposite and went to diversity and extinction rates through time, which was mostly meta-analyses and giant, data sets.
I went to a cool talk on paleolimnology.
I would say, do we want to do this independently of each person talking about what they do, or do we want to just keep interstitially cutting in?
Oh, I don't know, whatever.
Okay. Well, anyway, I guess
More about what I saw.
more about what I saw, and then blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Yeah, I mean...
Dave and I had a decent burger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the burger. Was that a good burger?
It was okay. It had
Where
butter
was
on
it?
it.
What was it called?
I was doing the
It
booth.
was
I didn't
Lark
get to go.
Burger.
Lark Burger. Is
Okay.
that a chain?
Also, it had butter on it, which made James not feel good.
That's the thing that was bad about the burger. But Dave, what was your thought of the burger?
I thought it was quite adequate.
Okay, quite adequate.
High praise.
high praise for a
Like,
burger.
I got a little bit confused when getting my fountain drink.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
what was it specifically about the fountain drink? And then we'll go to Amanda's limnology talk.
There were 2 levels of options, which
Oh.
I'm just not used to.
Oh,
and
so
on a
was
touch
this-
screen.
Was this one of those amazing ones where you get to pick the thing and then you get to pick an additive?
It was a radial
Oh.
menu.
Ooh,
Yes,
those are
yes,
good.
these are okay. So this is replacing the actual sad thing is this is automating something that a soda fountaineer or someone at a drugstore used to do in the
A
1950s.
soda jerk.
Yeah, soda jerk. You would order. Yeah, that's what they're called. They're called soda jerks.
There's a
And
song
it's not
about
because
it.
they're assholes.
No.
No,
I
that's
can't-
how
I
they
can't
flavor
remember-
it.
I can't.
Oh,
I can't remember who did the. Hold on, I gotta look up the song because it's gonna bother me.
Okay, well, while you're looking up the song, yeah. So basically, what did you go for as far as a drink? Did you just run of the mill Diet Coke or something shit like
Diet
that?
Coke.
I was just saying.
No, regular Coke. And then,
Regular Coke, of course.
Like, my experience has gone...
Here's the problem, and I'm just gonna let you know this. Our Coke is inferior to your Coke.
I agree. I totally agree.
Completely, because we use corn as opposed to sugar, and it tastes
No,
fucking
stop
terrible.
It, stop it! Stop it!
In-
And
it-
Amanda's
'cause-
now playing a song. Get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off,
It's
get it
okay,
off.
it's less than 30 seconds.
Okay.
So, Dave, in the last 3 days, you've probably had a ton of stuff that's banned in England because it will give you cancer.
Nice.
Oh, there it is. Buffalo Tom. Soda Jerk by Buffalo Tom. It's a song.
Do you want to play it so that we know?
No, we
No,
can't
we
because
can't.
that's the fuck.
Although
You can
I'm
play
pretty
30 seconds.
All right,
Totally.
30 seconds, yeah.
Um,
If we get banned, I swear to God, we are blaming you. We are blaming you.
It's okay, we're going back to plan 1 and be a subsidiary.
No, that's the thing, right? Originally, we were going to be a subsidiary, and then he found. What you? Okay, thank you. I don't. 30 seconds didn't help. I've
no.
never heard it before.
that
but
was
thank
only
you.
11 seconds anyway. But
Okay.
I'm fine. It was just bothering me that I couldn't.
So regular
remember.
Coke, but no additive.
Yeah, that's what I wanted, but I had the... In the UK, you've got the options of Coke, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Vanilla Coke if you, like, really look out and find the right place, or Cherry Coke, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you got. And today, I was given the option of Raspberry Coke,
Yes.
Orange Coke,
Yes.
and some other crazy ones that I...
No,
didn't
that's
even
fucked
remember.
up.
No, the thing I always love to do is you do 1/3 raspberry Coke, then you switch it over to vanilla Coke. Because
Well,
I am a
Vanilla
crazy
Coke
fucker.
just owns anyway.
Vanilla Coke is the best, but what you should do is drink water because,
It's gonna kill you.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't. Well, you guys know what caffeine does to me. It gives me heart palpitations. I can't drink Coke anymore.
Okay, well, it literally kills Amanda, but let's not actually get to that.
I'll tell you what we could do, Amanda. We could grind up some grass, put some water in it, then add vanilla sauce, and that's pretty much Coke without the caffeine.
Yeah. There's a company that makes something called.
By the
China
way,
Cola,
this is
which
fucking
effectively that.
bullshit. Let's talk about something relevant.
Wait,
Right.
what? Amanda, limnology talk.
No,
Right.
we could talk more about those experiences, but you're talking about...
Dave, what are your experiences on going to America?
What, in general?
Just in
or are we
general.
still on Lark Burger?
Sure. Well, whatever you want to
We
talk
we
about.
have no structure.
Absolutely nothing. Okay,
how's your
Amanda,
re- how's-
limnology.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I went to a really cool talk on the paleolimnology of the Great Lakes, the Laurentian Great Lakes.
Who went?
Oh, and James went too.
And James went to.
And it was actually really cool. Talking about how we're looking at invasive species coming in and fluctuations in algae, specifically diatom species that are around, and looking at chemical like water chemistry, like specific ions, and things like that. And it was pretty cool. And I got to ask a very relevant question.
Okay.
What was the question?
Well, he was one of the things that he's noting is a rise in chlorine ions, in general across all 5 lakes, and so somebody had asked a question about that, but I don't remember what the question was, and so I just sort of asked if he thought that it could have anything to do with the fact that we've seen a drop in relative water level across all 5 lakes, and if that could increase the salinity, which is possible, but I didn't think that it would be that responsible for such an increase because we've only dropped by a few feet.
Okay.
But I guess when you're dealing with cratonic lakes, that I guess a few feet is all you need when you're not dealing with rift lake basins that are miles deep.
Well, I was going to say, for the Great Lakes, just for people who are outside of the United States, what we're talking about are these areas where they've been scoured out by glaciers, and then they've sort of turned into large inland seas, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's that hypersaline lake in California that is only hypersaline because it's shrunk by half its size.
Well, that's the thing where like all the fish are completely dead, right?
Mhm.
And
Well,
just everything's
the
gone crazy.
one in California is actually left over from the basin and range, right? Because it's Great Salt Lake is a remnant of the actual ocean was there. Isn't the one in California the same thing?
Yeah, I thought there was potentially some like pulling in an oceanic bay,
Yeah.
and then it was
But it
turned
gets-
into a
but it
resort
gets- it
area,
gets
and
water
then
in
it just
floods.
died.
No, I'm pretty sure that's like the.
Amanda, I'm talking about where the California gulls nest.
I think that's a relict bay. I don't think that's a
It's got tufa formations from upwellings.
A what?
It's got tufa formations from upwellings.
Okay, huh. I really, honest to God, thought that was a relict bay, but maybe I'm wrong.
It is, even if it is, it's getting influx of water.
Well, one cool talk that I went to was a look at trilobite, the difference between trilobite disparity and trilobite diversity. The talk was actually particularly cool. Partly, this is a little bit of a weird thing, but the entire slideshow didn't load, so she had to do the majority of the thing completely by memory until eventually they got the slides to go. But it was an interesting study where they used principal coordinates analysis to try and piece apart differences between disparity while also looking at taxonomic diversity. So they saw like extinction events on a phylogeny where things were dying out, but despite the fact that things were dying out, they were still showing increases in disparity through time.
James wants to do a postdoc on that. Tell us more about it, James.
Yeah, James.
What was she? What was the data that the principal coordinated?
She was all doing landmark analyses for morphometrics on Cornidia.
Okay, I mean it's basically you're looking at during extinction you can have multiple potential patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You can either have a selective pressure which is going to push things into a corner of their morphospace and then out of it necessarily in a certain direction. You're going to get winnowing, which can lead to no actual loss disparity because it's almost random. Or you can end up with a hollowing out where the core of your disparity goes, but because the peripheral is still pushing outwards, disparity increases, but it's a very hollow disparity. You've only got the peripherals being preserved.
Yeah, she had mentioned that it's possible that random extinction could just be pushing this particular pattern. Like you're not getting individual clades going extinct, but just random extinction that's pushing like towards the outliers of the morphospace.
Yeah.
And we're all just very happy that Amanda now has a plush Euryptera on her head.
I bought a plush Euryptera today. I regret nothing.
Why would you regret anything? So, yeah.
So I mean,
Don't move on.
Oh, wait. Okay. We have. Oh, okay. That's very important. Dave, solidarity plus Eurypterid.
I now also have
Yay.
a plush Eurypterid.
So you went
Oh,
to the
my
brain slug planet and decided to stay of your own free will.
my Euryptera's in the office.
My Eurypterid is at home.
That's okay.
We don't.
Hey, listeners, why don't you get in touch and tell us where your Eurypterid is?
Yeah, where is your plush Eurypterid?
Send your
listeners?
photos in.
Yeah, to Paleo After Dark with the A, like the British spelling, at gmail.com. No one sends us anything.
Send any complaints to Palaeocast.com.
Who's going to complain about Eurypterids on heads?
You know what? The fact that it's an audio podcast, they might complain unless I can get a picture of a Eurypterid on someone's head. Oh, and then this is going to happen.
Oh yeah, James has camera.
James does in fact
Am I
have
allowed to take a photo?
You're giving away
Yes, you are.
the recording studio,
the
showing everyone what it's like.
No, God, no. This is what this whole thing is about. This is grassroots shit. Yeah, we are fucking punk rock. We are metal. Yeah, that's right. Fucking
There
metal.
we go.
Yay.
Yay.
Awesome. I need those pictures.
Sure.
Thank
No,
you.
so that sounds.
You want to
Okay,
see
sorry,
your
it
first
needs
back
to
of the
go
head?
on for Paula.
Okay, we're good.
Has Paula been on the show before?
Paula has
Yes.
been on the show. Paula was
Missed
on
it.
Paula was on the show for Pikaia, where we talked to Paula about Pikaia and Pokemon and poop. Yeah,
Was it the P
Oh,
episode?
that was the P episode.
And she was on for
Do you
2
do it
feet.
like Sesame Street?
She was also on for 2
Oh,
feet.
Paula, you missed a poster that had
2
2 feet.
There were 2 feet and a poster.
Yeah, I saw it and I thought of you and I was like, oh my god, I should try and get
It
a
was
hold of
2
Paula,
feet
and then I
from the
didn't because I'm
100th
sorry.
It was.
Well, to be fair,
Amanda
James's
doesn't
phone
like
was
you and
dead
my
and it
phone
was
had
my
no
fault.
battery.
Amanda doesn't
No.
like you.
Oh wow, I just ratted myself out there.
It's okay.
Amanda likes you really.
Paula, I love you.
I'll fix it in post.
Okay. So that's a very interesting talk that I kind of wish I'd seen.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then I also saw, I don't know how much I want to get into this, but because it's kind of the basis of some of the research I'm doing, but there was an analysis on Ordovician brachiopods across the entirety of the Ordovician to the Silurian Devonian. Looking, it was an initial analysis, so it was trying to get at phylogenetic patterns, but it was using taxonomic patterns as a proxy, and kind of fully admitted that that was potentially problematic, but trying to see whether or not origination and extinction were clumped or random across the individual clades. And at least the pattern that they came up with was that for the beginning of the Ordovician, it was more or less entirely random for extinction and origination. But after the Ordovician, there was clumped patterns, so that there was, large group, individual clades massively originating or individual clades massively going extinct. So, I don't know. It's interesting to potentially think that the end Ordovician could have caused this massive change in the larger cladal dynamics or the evolutionary dynamics. It's also entirely possible that this could be a taxonomic artifact. Like, there could be microclades or smaller elements that just aren't getting acknowledged.
So what you're saying is to reduce clumping, just choose the end Ordovician.
Yeah, to reduce your clumping. I think it's really interesting because
I thought you should use Tidy Cat.
use Tiny Cat. What?
No, wait. Tidy Cat is supposed to clump.
Yeah. God, use your fucking pop culture, Amanda. My God.
I know, I'm bad.
Now I feel bad.
It's okay, I have a Eurypterid.
You do, in fact.
I'll name one after you.
Yeah, he'll name one after you. That's the way it works. So,
Sorry,
Dave's
I've-
just seen the back of his own head.
what did you do?
I just got Paula to take a picture of us, and I've just seen the back of my own head, and it's quite horrific.
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't know it was that bad. I've
I
just
didn't
had
want to tell you. I'm sorry.
quite a personal moment live on.
We-
Palaeocast.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what we
a
do.
bit
It's all very
taken
raw.
back.
All right. We went to a very
Wait,
interesting.
you had
Yeah,
fun
move
without
on,
me?
move on.
Yeah. Paula
Fuck
and
you
I.
people.
Paula and I also went on to a very interesting talk.
We talk about lakes, so yeah.
No. We went to a talk about the end Permian mass extinction.
Ooh, I love the end Permian mass
Yeah,
extinction.
Amanda likes it when life almost dies.
Yes, I do.
But it was kind of an interesting talk because we were just talking. There was like a bunch of very interesting, weird mollusks that they talked about for a little while, including one that was like a weird bivalve that was potentially 1 meter long. So yeah, 3.5 feet for non-metric people.
Giant
That's
clams.
pretty big.
Yeah, giant clams. Yeah, things like that. Yeah, he had one that looked like the dude was really nice. Like he just was a really funny presenter,
By bomber, do we mean
like a stealth
I
bomber.
was
Oh,
wondering
okay,
about that as
not
well.
not shady
Yeah.
dude with a backpack.
Yeah, no. He's not the bomb. He is. It looked like a stealth bomber.
Okay.
And they was just sort of going into like the kind of the end of the talk was, and potentially it's just because he had a lot to talk about. It was, and so it's not just climate that's affecting the end Permian. It's see my paper, which I thought was pretty fucking great. And as I said, the dude was like really charismatic, really funny to listen to.
Who was it? Just out of curiosity.
I can't remember the name because I came in a little bit late. Yeah, Iyazuki. It was a Japanese guy. He was.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go look this guy's paper up now, just because.
Yeah, it was 4:15 on a Monday afternoon
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
in the diversity. Well, I guess the mass extinction thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so I guess beyond that, God, what else did I see? I saw some macroecological talks, which were kind of cool. again, those are kind of friends and lab mates, so I kind of want to avoid talking about that just as far as soapboxing. I thought they were great, but I'm not, unbiased.
Yeah, I the other talks that I saw that I have any opinions on, I can't because it's just way too soapbox.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think we can talk about that, and I think we should talk about that.
We could talk about the. I mean, you have opinions on color. There are
Yeah.
important
You have
differences.
very strong opinions on color. You fucking racist.
So, okay, so
First of all, Amanda's colors don't mix.
no, so
Oh God. Well done, James.
Amanda didn't like the fact that he reconstructed something as being black.
And also that there was a little bit of white in there too. Did not enjoy the black and the white getting on, right? Is that it?
Right,
You're not
yeah.
down with the swirl?
yeah, I'm sure that's
We can't
what it
talk
is.
anymore.
That's okay, Curtis.
I don't
we
wanna be
we
friends
don't want to
with
be
you guys
friends with you
anymore.
either.
So
I
Phil
really
Manning-
hope Cindy listens to this, but I know she won't.
Phil Manning had a talk where he
That's TV's Phil Manning.
Yeah, thank you very much, TV's Phil Manning. I'm
I'm
glad
from-
it was not one of us because we were all desperately choking at the bit to say it.
And his friend the flamingo.
His friend.
So he was talking about pigments in fossil feathers, which I have problems with, but whatever. I'm gonna bite the bullet on that one. But he was looking at
Yeah, we had an entire podcast of you
yeah, we
having
had-
problems with that.
Yeah.
And we were
Well,
like, this
and-
is all really great. And you're like gritting your teeth
be
like,
fair,
fuck
of-
you
of-
guys.
of-
Just fuck you all.
Of
Yeah, pretty
Amanda's
much.
many problems, pigments in fossil feathers is probably a rather minor one.
Yes, this is true. So he was talking about pigments in feathers, and he ended up reconstructing. First, the talk was supposed to be on Archaeopteryx, but he had a lot of Confuciusornis in there.
He also had a 3-minute view box diagram of how a synchrotron works.
That I actually appreciated though, because I had no idea how that worked.
I thought it was actually pretty well done.
Oh no, it
Yeah,
totally
that
was.
I like
actually-
that.
Yeah, that was very well
There was
done.
also some amazing advertising for Stanford in there.
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
So the main thing that he came up with for Confuciusornis was that a lot of the wing feathers were white. Like
Okay.
the entirety of the proximal wing was white. And I'm not going to go into detail except to say that that's wrong.
Not going into detail, other than
Well,
you are
it's-
completely fucked.
It's not published yet. I can't
Yeah, I know.
I can't say anything about it, but just guys out there on the internet,
Guy out there.
take
Person who listens to this, yeah, whatever.
take my word for it. That's wrong.
Well, he went to some lengths to stress that it wasn't white. But
No,
are you talking a whole different
It-
scale?
Trust me, it's wrong, and we'll talk about this when I'm not recording. And just
A
trust
lot
me.
of his talk was shades of grey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and-
Thank you.
And the pattern of light and dark that he got for Archaeopteryx was actually interesting and potentially feasible. I think he extrapolated a little too much because he only looked at that isolated secondary feather. No, that's not true. He looked at the counterslab of the Berlin specimen.
He did indeed.
Um,
The interesting thing about the
I'm a little bit hesitant about the counterslab of the Berlin specimen because those are impressions. They are not.
yeah, but if he's getting melanosome, or what he's doing is looking for mineral impressions, and
Yeah.
that we know the minerals split unevenly when you go part and
Yeah,
counterpart.
so the synchrotron the
yeah.
synchrotron work was basically he did chemical analyses of these feathers to try and see, because he assumed that there would be certain chemicals or elements that would link to specific melanosomes. And so he looked for concentrations of carbon and iron and things like that as proxies for melanosomes, which is an
Right.
interesting way to look at it, at
Mhm.
least. I mean,
It's actually possibly less problematic than looking for the shapes.
yeah, I agree. And that he mentions very early on that the problem with looking at the shapes is that the shapes look exactly, and we discussed this again in Space Ducks, which is probably my most regrettable title. I apologize.
No,
for
that title owns.
I remember when James actually first looked at the picture and the title, he just went, I fucking hate you. So anyway, yeah, as we discussed before, the problem is melanosomes look strikingly, frighteningly similar to bacterial mats.
Yes. So,
If you want,
It-
if you want an interesting little history thing, and you said, "Oh, they looked at that isolated primary," technically, that isolated primary is the only thing we know is actually
it's a
Archaeopteryx.
secondary.
Okay, secondary. It's the only thing we know is actually Archaeopteryx 'cause it's the holotype.
Wait, really?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the specimen that the classic big complete specimen is not the holotype, so we don't
No.
know if that's
No,
really
they actually had the ICZN rule to say it doesn't matter. We're going to assume they're the same thing.
Yeah, pretty
Jesus.
much. Yep.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it was an interesting talk.
Wow, that is an expression that just is like, what can I say that's not going to be evil?
Yes.
Interestingly enough, the patterns he's noted in the melanosomes make sense from a structural perspective.
Yes. With Archaeopteryx.
Yes.
Essentially, he showed the outer edges of the
I
feathers.
don't
and the
think
very...
they scanned. Did they scan Confucius?
Yeah, they scanned Confuciusaurus. Because remember, he showed that
Yeah,
thing.
they did
yeah.
both. They did both.
He showed that thing that I said looked just like the thing that I did with different stuff that I can't talk about right now.
Wow, that is the most descriptive explanation I've ever heard. Do you work for the mafia?
No, but I should probably.
Forget about it.
Anyway, and so he reconstructed Archaeopteryx with the outer edges of the primaries and secondaries, I think, edged in black, which is interesting because a lot of white birds or lighter colored birds will actually have black primaries and secondaries because it
What are you
causes the
laughing at,
feathers-
James?
He's laughing at
Just the way
Paula.
she said white birds. A bunch of white birds.
All the white birds.
Bye, Paula.
See ya.
Bye, Paula. Okay.
We'll see you in a little bit.
The funny thing is, I know they pick you up ever so slightly.
And so that's interesting because
Have you got your key card? Cool.
Good.
Good. Feathers that have darker pigments weather slower. So this is why when you have something like a starling, when a starling molts, it's got these feathers tipped in white. That white, I don't want to say erodes. Frays, yes.
Yeah.
Faster. And so that's why their breeding plumage looks shiny and black. They haven't molted again. It's just that the white.
It's also
goes
how
the
you can
fuck away.
age juveniles based on how frayed the tips of the feathers are.
Yes. So the darker your feathers are, the less likely they are to go the fuck away. Essentially. So it's
just go the fuck away.
it's actually, it makes a lot of sense. But that's also kind of why his Confuciusornis reconstruction didn't make a lot of sense.
Well, it looked like an anorexic teenager.
Well,
Wait, you mean like all in goth clothes and like a streak of white in its
No,
hair?
the best thing was the fact that the Archaeopteryx, I've never seen a bird look so pissed in my entire life.
Yeah, well, that's also because it's like, it's on the line, so it doesn't really quite look like a bird. It's fucking angry. So, yeah, there's that.
but really, in all honesty, that's the only talk that I have any real opinions about that I saw today.
Okay. James, do you have anything?
I saw a couple of talks. I think of ones that are of interest. There was there was one, and this is something I think a topic we're going to cover in the future. But the fossilized brains.
The fossilized brains.
And the reason I'm mostly mentioning this talk is because
This is the post-Halloween brains talk, right? Because it's going to get posted post-Halloween. You are just going to kill me, aren't you?
Just tell us about the talk, James. It's okay.
well, I'm actually going to talk less about the talk and more about what happened during the talk.
Yeah, tell us.
What happened?
An alarm started. An alarm which cut off the mics and every 5 seconds had a recorded message going, "This is an alarm. The fire department have been alerted. Please wait where you are and await further instructions."
Okay. Wait. Two things. It was an alarm. That was an actual alarm that had to then tell you it was an alarm.
No, I like the fact that it said that the fire department has been alerted. Please wait where you are.
It's okay. Just burn to death. It'll be fine.
Literally derailed the thing for 10 minutes because it wouldn't shut up.
This explains
Also,
why
I
I
not-
got a text saying, "Are you okay?" This was a thing that happened.
Yeah,
And Curtis got a text that said,
Are
you
you in
still-"
the building?
Yes.
well, because I wanted to, first of all, I just wanted to know you're okay. Well, I figured I couldn't just text Amanda because that would look bad. So
I figured that was the only reason you texted me, especially since it was 2 minutes afterwards and we were sitting at the same table. So yeah, good fucking job there. Obviously covering your ass.
I text Paula too. No, but the funny thing is I have not met anyone else that wasn't in that room that heard it, so it might have just been our room.
Oh,
Yeah, I
seriously?
think it was, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was nothing. I was downstairs just
Yeah.
waiting to transfer files from the last podcast we did.
So it was literally just our room, and she tried to keep going, and it started again, and then she tried again, and it started again, and then
So was this the exceptional fossils
Yeah.
preservation? That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
an interesting. Okay, so that was that, and we're going to talk more about that later. So I'm not going to go into that too much. But then there were 2 talks about a new Lagerstätten from some shitty place in Canada. I've forgotten its name.
Why do you keep? Never mind.
And it's got new stuff. Now, interestingly enough, from the first talk, there's a bunch of new arthropods, a lot of them the same species as stuff that are from the main Geological cavity. But they showed us a specimen of Spriginia,
Okay.
which they have supposedly preserved heart and liver in,
Okay.
and is describing with Conway Morris as a new early vertebrate, or chordate.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's got a big liver system, apparently, which was in the process of being squeezed out the anus in the fossil.
Okay. That seems like a really bad way to go. Just
Yeah.
shitting out your own liver.
No, they also have Cynia with fecal parrots streaming out the back that are longer than the actual animal.
So it saw what was coming before it happened.
Pretty much. As Martin used to tell me when he was working on Emeraldella, you could see some of these shot off a final Zeppelin just before they died. And then he went with, and you could tell the seepage is different because it's just this dark stain around it.
The seepage, yeah. As to whether or not it was shitting in its own position.
Or just being
God.
squeezed out post-mortem.
Oh, squeezed out, yeah.
You know, sphincters relax.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know if arthropods have sphincters.
I don't know either.
I don't really want to know.
Don't you? Don't you? Don't you?
So that's almost a song.
Don't you? Don't you? Don't you? Or Sphincters Relax. Sphincters Relax sounds like an 80s punk band.
Yes, it does. It sounds like a great 80s punk band.
Anyway, I guess on that point we're gonna call it for tonight. So we'll be back again tomorrow. Of course, to all of you, it's just gonna be a single little blip, and then it's gonna be the next day.
Woohoo!
We'll be happier or sadder. There'll be that weird moment where James has suddenly grown a goatee and Amanda has a broken leg. I'm just thinking parallel universes shit. Come on. Fucking evil Spock. Never
Fair
mind.
enough.
Fuck
Fair
this.
And echo check.
Go.
We are echoing, yes.
Hooray.
Okay, this should be good today.
Day 3. Yeah. Day 3.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the way day 3 always feels, right?
Yeah, IPC3 nearly killed me because it was a full week. I was getting scurvy by the end of it.
Yeah, the thing about IPC3 is I've very consciously decided early on to just decide to spend most of my time in London.
Yeah, I can see that.
I get more than a full week.
Oh, we're sorry, man.
You're
you have
doing
to go
2
to SVP.
conferences though. It's your own decision to do
It's
that.
your own fault.
Yes,
I know, it's not her
yes.
fault.
It is my own fault. This is true.
Well, I mean, today we saw a...
Today I saw 4 talks.
Yeah, today I saw 4 talks, too.
I think that's about what I saw. Or are we counting... Wait, are we counting James's talk as a talk? 'Cause in
Well, we
that
saw
case-
this crazy talk by some crazy person that just was putting up a whole bunch of pictures saying, look at this, look at this. And yeah, I don't know.
That pretty much was my talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was a good talk, though.
I'm
I think
glad
it was
you
good.
liked it.
So I guess technically I saw 5 talks, but they were all like...
Well, to be fair, you saw 4.5 because that guy before me did not finish.
That's true. Oh, and neither did that one woman, so I guess technically I've only seen 4 talks.
Yeah, there were a fair amount of talks that went on for very long. So we were in, I guess, a function and morphology section.
Morphology and phylogeny.
Morphology and phylogeny, sorry. There was a cool, I guess, a potential study on ontogeny and its importance in evolution.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was looking at brachiopods and the little thingies that come off the shells that
Crura.
Crura.
C-R-U-R-A. They're in Rechinelliformids, and they hold the brachydium. They hold the
Lophiform.
Lophiform place. So yeah, they were showing how those were evolving through time. And James, I kind of had a brief emergency, so I couldn't watch all of it. But
Yes.
you had mentioned.
There are a couple of interesting things that come out of it. First of all, they point out very early on that there are 5 or 6 basic types of chiral structure.
Yeah.
that are extant, because there are more that are extinct. If I recall correctly, I think there are like 12.
Yeah, there was something along the lines of like 6 structures in the modern and 16 possible.
Or something like that. It was in the teens, yeah.
And the first thing they wanted to do was check to see if this changes throughout ontogeny, which very quickly they could ascertain because of modern stuff as well that it does. So what they then did after that was, first of all, how many of these structures we see in the fossil record are just juveniles, of which they said some of them were just juveniles, and that's
Okay,
why.
so poorly defined taxonomy.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just named juveniles.
Yeah. And then they then looked at them and said, so how many of the adult structures are indistinguishable at juvenile levels? And so they did some cladistic analyses, not strict phylogenetics, because they were including the juveniles as terminal taxa, to work out where these fall on the phylogeny. And they actually showed, the really cool thing is they showed something that I've observed in my own work, which is juveniles will tend to be pushed further down the tree and will try to clade together.
Yeah. So that the talk was entitled "Does Ontogeny Recapitulate Phylogeny?" which is reiterating what Haeckel's original idea.
And I mean the first thing that I've got to point out is that I see a lot of talks about ontogeny. This is one of the few talks where she stood up and said, it's true if you've got perimorphosis, but you get pedomorphosis, and you immediately knew she actually knew what she was talking about, which a lot of people don't in this subject.
So why don't you define, James, perimorphosis and pedomorphosis?
So perimorphosis is essentially just extended development, so that you get exaggerated adult forms. I believe I've explained this before.
Yeah, I
think
think we've
you
talked
have.
about this
Yeah.
before, but
Just in case.
it's a good refresher.
And pedomorphosis is when growth and development for some reason is either curtailed or stunted, and so as an adult you retain juvenile characteristics.
Okay.
So she was very clearly very knowledgeable about the subject, knew brachiopods very well as well. So then they went on to say, well, if you look at the phylogeny in general, you can see there are groups that are defined by having juvenile characteristics that they just don't have in adults, so this is very important. And again, that's something that I agree with, and I thought it was very interesting to see that in brachiopods. It also expands the number of characters you can get out of something which, for some groups at least, is basically a smooth shell with internal structures that you may or may not have preserved.
Yeah.
So that was cool. The tree had an interesting odd length, but
Yeah. That's
beside the point.
Yeah.
So that was a good talk, and those are the main gists that you missed while firefighting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the other cool thing about that talk is that they used micro CT to actually be able to scan and get these really delicate structures out of the fossils, because they don't preserve all that well.
Oh yeah, because you're dealing with really small juveniles, and juvenile brachiopods could be so tiny that you can't break them open or to see any of the internal structure.
Yeah,
that's cool.
The talk after that was that the plant talk or the ammonite talk?
I think that was the plant.
That was
talk.
the plant talk.
Okay.
There was also a really cool talk on carnivore and teeth and jaws.
That's later.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, okay. I don't.
I mean, we don't have to go in order. We can talk about.
No,
that
we can do
one.
it. Well, I missed most of the. Imagine I both tag teamed out of the plant talk.
Yeah, which I don't think we missed all that much.
I can't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so that one.
I don't want it to be like negative. It was talking about the potential importance of seed bearing plants, but the talk.
It was seed size.
Yeah, seed size, and the kind of notion that seed size is a back and forth between several different constructs. Were you going to do a back and forth forever joke?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can't remember which
YouTube
talk it
back
was.
and forth forever.
It might have been Nigel Hughes' talk yesterday. I'm not sure. There was one talk where they kept going back and forth, and it just kept killing me.
You didn't talk about Nigel Hughes' talk yesterday.
I didn't talk about a lot of talks yesterday.
Yeah, good point. We kind of cut you off on that.
Yeah, we can go through today's stuff. My fucking calf muscle's cramping up again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Do you need to stretch out?
I really hope there's nothing under this bed.
So anyway, the talk about seed size was kind of getting at that there's many different things that can be influencing seed size, but like that there's two different sort of strategies between whether or not you have large amounts of food and ensure that your young are going to survive, or you're going to do a whole bunch of individuals, and then there's other constraints based upon like the type of plant that you have. Like you can't have a giant seed if you're a little dandelion because it's just physically impossible to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So they never really got to get to the conclusions because that's one of the talks that went really long. So I don't really know how much we can talk about.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about carnivora?
I think that talk was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a cool talk.
It began with an amazing series of photographs, including something that was like a wolverine, or it was like a fisher or something.
It looked kind of like a civet, but I'm not entirely.
That was way fluffy.
It was really fluffy. It wasn't that new thing that they just discovered, was it?
No, and it wasn't a Fusa either.
No, I don't know what it was, but it looked really cool. And so, essentially, what she was trying to do is link dentition and diet. Was sort of like the main point. It wasn't the only point. But it was really cool because she also included a nice little slide on how you can't always trust undergraduates to do the job
that
right.
was good.
Okay, so why don't you explain that slide just a little bit?
So she showed us a scatter plot of data points that her undergraduate students had collected, and then the trend line that ran along that data point.
So wait, scatter plot based on the students'
The
observations,
students' observations.
And what else?
It was her observations.
The real,
the
real
observations.
actual observations.
And so she ran a trend line along what the student observations had given, and then she's like, and this is what the real trend line should look like, and it was way off.
Interestingly, the student observations, there was a massive scatter. Like it was absolute random. They did an R-squared value on the trend line, and it was absolute random. But there was a definite bias towards them underestimating the size.
Yes, definitely.
Which was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was a great little sort of excerpt on.
Actually, it was a good talk in general because again and again she kept pointing out their sources of bias and error, which a lot of people would not do.
Yeah. But I think, so if we get back to actually what the talk was about, it was trying to piece apart how much dentition of mammals is a result of phylogenetic history versus function.
Right, versus the diet, yeah.
So if you have these type of teeth, you eat this type of thing.
Yes.
And specifically looking at carnivora and specifically looking at...
Well, there were some cats.
Yeah, lots of little cats.
Yeah, and there were some bears. And
some bears.
Cats and bears,
and
tigers.
mustelids, I think.
Yeah.
Mustelids, weasels.
Weasels, yeah. They did mention weasels, and every single time they mentioned weasels, James just smiled.
Because the weasels are the best thing in Roger Rabbit.
The weasels are the best thing in Roger Rabbit.
That is actually the truest statement that you have ever made.
You know what? I'm not gonna go back and try and find truer statements. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, James. The highlight of truth for you is saying that the weasels were pretty great in Roger Rabbit.
Do you know what? I'd go for that because if I could get a poster of those weasels, I'd totally buy it and frame it.
I'm kind of surprised they don't have them.
Yeah.
Me too. That seems like something that they would have.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so they looked at trying to use the function of the teeth, or the structure of the teeth, to estimate function. And what did they find?
Well, first of all, she noticed that when she wasn't accounting for phylogenetic data, that there are a lot of omnivores' teeth that kept coming out as carnivorous, and that's interesting because carnivory is the ground pattern for carnivores.
No, you've got that wrong. There's a lot of carnivore teeth were plotting as arm.
No.
Was it? I thought it was the other way around.
No, you've flipped the axes.
Have I? Oh, whoops.
When she did the phylogenetic stuff in, a lot of...
Then it just screwed everything over.
Okay, so explain screwing everything over.
It was random.
It was completely random?
She was edging towards, as she put it, edging towards 50% error rate, and when you've only got two options, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. So that it would be difficult just to look at the bones, given the phylogeny, and know whether or not this was eating one thing or another.
Yeah. And this is actually really interesting because it's something that a number of people will point out about evolution, but a lot of people don't necessarily think about, which is you're not adapted to environment in as much as you're perfectly situated for where you are. You're making do with what you had given where you are now.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the really cool thing. She actually mentioned this in the conclusions, basically stating that it looks like at the beginning of your clades, you kind of have a basic form potentially, and you work within that as best you can, and that's what's causing this massive scatter.
Yeah, and she's working on adding fossil data because at the moment they've only got extant stuff.
That was the one thing. I do wonder if you add in the fossil data, if it will show you the lines that are getting you there.
Yes.
Because she was originally looking at it saying, like, and it looks like we suddenly just immediately get all these forms. It's like, well, you're looking at the end and not seeing the path to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think adding in the fossils is going to clarify that quite a bit.
Yeah. You'll probably find that in terms of... Also, she's doing very interesting man-over tests like we've tried to do on morphological things before.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see those methods applied. I mean, and what she's really got is a method that works very well, that's worked with the modern, and now she's going to apply it to the past. And even though you might find that a lot of these things start to bleed together, because we know that the proof of concept works, we can trust the results. It just might be that the results show that it's sort of a continuum when you take everything into account.
Yeah, the results might not be what we want them to be.
Well, we shouldn't want them to be anything.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
I know, you would hope that you'd be able to get some information that would
Yeah, that's...
allow you to interpret ecology, but maybe it's really difficult.
Yeah, no, I'm not decrying that. I'm just saying...
Oh yeah, no, I understand the wants.
Yeah, because you do all that work, and then if it just goes, nope, you can't do this, that's always kind of depressing.
That's why I never do anything where a negative result is bad. A negative result for me, and almost any experiment I design is just as interesting as something that's showing a high trend.
Well, yeah, and I think in
and
a lot
it's
of
true
these
for
studies,
what she's doing as well.
For her?
Yeah,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you could differentiate, that's also very interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Also, she didn't include pinnipeds because the teeth are too ruined because they're all living in the sea.
Yeah,
You can't tell what they're doing.
pinnipeds have really weird, wonky teeth.
So,
The other three talks we saw, I mean, to be honest, there's not much to say about the two crinoid ones.
there was the coral one, which was kind of interesting.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the coral one was actually quite neat.
Yeah, so the coral one, for this whole thing about being phylogeny and morphology, this was very strictly morphology.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a conservation morphology.
Yeah.
They were trying to look at the effects of acidification of the oceans on coral. And so they basically subjected coral specimens in the lab to various levels of acidification that were based on projected model estimates of how bad things are going to get due to global warming. And they just showed really, really fine-scale SEM pictures to show the microstructure of these things. And it was really fascinating to see the microstructures breaking down. But the interesting thing that he was talking about is that the individual organisms didn't appear to be showing anything particularly unhealthy.
Right, they were just resorbing the skeletons, essentially.
Yeah, the skeletons were kind of falling apart, which in and of itself is going to inevitably lead to a problem.
Yes.
But it's very interesting that it's a problem that is extrinsic to the actual biology. Like, they could handle the increase in pH, but their skeletons can't.
But now, and this is the interesting thing, because what you're looking at there is, while the animals themselves might not die, they're going to stop becoming primary reef builders, because if their skeletons are breaking down, they can't put on any more.
Oh yeah, and that was the big thing. Is it was all the problem sites were in areas where lots of major growth was taking place, and so they weren't growing anymore. They were reducing.
The other interesting thing at the start of that, I'm sorry, you were going to say the same thing?
Maybe.
Go on.
The other interesting thing that he stated was that the ones that showed degradation were very, very small, and the ones that didn't show degradation were much larger.
Okay, yeah.
And that was actually quite interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm. So the size of the structure works against it.
Works for
for
or
it.
against, depending on
yeah.
And it was so size and robustness, because the bigger
Yeah.
you are, the larger that your calcareous skeleton's going to be.
The very interesting thing is at the start of the talk, he talks a lot about how we're going to sort of work out the conservation and what we're going to go for and how we're going to tell what's going on. And then he pulls up a molecular phylogeny and points out that vast swathes of corals just aren't related like we think they are, according to the molecular phylogeny, because they will they can very quickly sort of converge on a morphology. And I thought as well that at some point there were ramifications for what he was doing with the acidification, because he was framing this in terms of, and why is this? And it's because the environment can very quickly break down or alter the morphology of something, so that if you're a single species growing in a different environment, you can have a very different morphology even though you're the same species and nothing is actually different in you because of like the acidification issues and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I definitely think that he was always kept it very specific that he was looking at corals because
Yes.
corals are a very unique group, and he mentioned that convergence is a unique problem in corals.
Yes.
Right. It's very, very dependent on depth in the water column, how much light is reaching you, whether or not you're within, high energy, low energy. Corals are a pain in the ass to work with.
Yeah. I
Amanda Falk's professional assessment. Corals are a pain in the ass
It's
to work
okay.
with.
She was chuckling because I leaned over and just whispered, "You know what? Fuck corals," in her ear while the
Yes.
talk was going on.
Yes, because this guy is going, well, you've got this one species that's in the Atlantic, and there's other species in the Pacific that looks just like it. And so if you look at these other colonies, this one is actually more closely related to this one than it is to the one that looks just like it. And if this one that looks just like it's closely related, this other group, and they're totally not related. And then James leaves over and goes, you know what? Fuck corals.
Oh, man. So, do we have anything? There were the 2 talks on crinoids.
There was
which...
3D ammonites, which Amanda was in.
Yeah, the 3D ammonites
Oh,
talk
right,
was
yeah.
cool because it had photogrammetry, and photogrammetry is awesome.
Yeah, that was interesting. He had just a lot of landmark data to try and, I guess, give character-based estimates on a lot of continuous elements of the shell.
Yeah.
The one thing I thought that was most interesting about that talk had nothing to do with that talk. It was the one guy asking the question, which is, how can something so small be selected against? And I just looked at it and I'm like, what? A, you have no idea what it could have potentially been used for, so you can't really claim whether or not it was selected for or against. So, and B, that seems like a very antiquated view of evolution to be thinking specifically that every single form has to have a function. Like I think just in a simplistic example, a bird song is changing across species. You have 2 different species which are effectively cryptic, but they have very different songs, so they'll never interbreed with each other. Now, those 2 songs aren't adaptive in any way. It's just a difference, a change in the species mate recognition systems. So you can have non-maladaptive things that are just changes.
You can also have other issues leading to character changes, such as either you can have retention of characteristics when they're not detrimental, but you just don't need them anymore. So you just don't lose them because there's no impetus to do so. Also, there's founder effect issues. I mean, these things that have very dense nodules on the shell, maybe a lot of these ones afterwards have dense nodules just because their ancestors did, not necessarily because they're useful for anything.
Well, I mean, and their ancestors might have gotten them because they were just a random change that stuck.
Yeah, and that population that didn't die are just the ones that had relatively more of them.
Furthermore, the notion that it's just anything small isn't important, I think, is kind of ridiculous. Sickle cell anemia is something that is selected for in certain populations to be a carrier of because of the increase of malaria. That's a very small thing.
Right.
Seems a little weird. And plus, they could be exaptive in a different way. Like, they could be associated with a completely other structure that we don't know about because we don't have the soft body preservation, or we don't know the other things about the life strategy.
Well, what you're really missing, Curtis, is the main thing that this is probably because of sexual selection.
Right, of course. This is all sexual selection.
Because everything is about sexual selection.
Everything is about sex.
Unless you're an archaeologist when it's all ritual.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
It's good. Blame it on religion if you're an archaeologist. Blame it on sex if you're a biologist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I say, do we have anything else we want to talk about for that particular? Did any of you guys see any posters or anything?
Oh, I did see that guy's poster.
Yeah?
But I don't remember anything about it.
Oh, okay. I didn't get to see Peter's poster because I was stuck on.
It had a thing that looked kind of like an agnostid trilobite on it.
They're not trilobites.
Well, you know what I mean.
Nectaspids, which are basically agnostoid, like arthropods of unknown affinity.
Yeah, they were blobby looking things.
They're blobs.
And they were yellow on his posters. I was like, hey, yellow blobs. And then I was like, oh, I should not be looking at posters right now. And
It's okay, it's
I
from
walked
Morocco.
away.
Moroccan stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's often orangey because of the iron content.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was his 3D reconstruction. It was like lime yellow.
Oh, he had a 3D reconstruction?
Lemon yellow, yeah.
Were the Haugs on that poster?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't check. I just looked up long enough to see Peter, and I was like, oh, hey, this is the guy that James wanted to see. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And that's my poster report.
Okay, post report from Amanda Falk.
Yay.
Now with the weather, James Lamsdale.
It's miserable.
It's miserable. Okay, now with sports, Amanda Falk.
The Lions won.
The Lions won.
This will not be applicable in like the next couple. Actually, next weekend they're on the bye, so they can't possibly lose.
Okay.
I'm sure they can find a way.
I mean, they are the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, watch, somebody will get in a car accident or something. Just like
Do not say shit like that.
no, I don't even say it, and it happens. Nate Burleson broke his goddamn arm trying to save pizza boxes, going like 80 down what it was I 475 or whatever the fuck it is, the loop around Detroit. Then he fucking breaks his arm because he totals his car on the concrete divider because his pizza started falling off the chair, the passenger seat.
Why didn't he buckle it in?
So the best thing to come out of all that is that DiGiorno is giving him a lifetime thing of pizza.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
So he's going to get fat and useless.
He's
Wait.
wait. God damn it! What position does he play? Is he a T?
I would say, is it okay if he's just the brick wall if he becomes fat and useless?
It might be. I cannot for the life of me right now remember what position he plays.
Regardless, one thing that I was thinking of is there were a few talks especially the first podcast that I really wanted to talk about, but we had to run the fuck out of here.
Yeah, let's do that. That's cool.
Okay. One of the ones I was thinking of was, again, sort of individual friends. I don't know how much we want to talk too much about it, but John Hendricks's talk about the changes in biogeography versus extinction potential I thought was pretty cool.
Okay, I didn't see that.
I would say I don't think I was there for that one.
You weren't there for that one?
No, either I nipped out or I just wasn't
Oh yeah,
there.
you might have both been gone, and
I know
you
why
were
I was
talking.
gone.
Yeah, you were talking to
Yeah.
people.
Why was I gone?
I don't know.
Oh, was I? I might have been in that the Beaver Dam talk.
Yeah, you went to see about Michigan.
I did. Yep. I bet that's what it was. Yep.
Okay. Well, again, a little bit more fuzzy in my mind, so I'm probably gonna fuck this whole thing up. The start of it was a little bit more of a public outreach stuff that he crammed into the beginning, talking about the digitization grant. But once he got into the actual talk, he had been looking at sort of changes in latitudinal gradient through time, or latitudinal extent through time of individual species of bivalves. So, I mean, focusing, I think, on Conus, and trying to see whether or not, as you were going across, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. When you were going across various interchanges, if there were shrinkages across those interchanges, and if that correlated with a higher propensity towards, becoming extinct. In other words, could you see range contraction associated with extinction? And yeah, it was cool. He did.
Cool.
That is pretty cool.
They were he showed what would be expected as like a bow tie random event if there was no difference between anyway. If he showed his random curve and compared it to his non-random curve and showed periods of massive range contraction and massive range expansion, and it was cool.
Cool.
I thought that talk was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I guess beyond that, I also went to see Jablonski's talk.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Jablonski's talk was pretty cool. I think there's a lot of big picture ideas, and but I don't think he really focused on any conclusions. He went into looking at temperature as a predictor for range size, or rather temperature occupation, or rather temperature as a predictor of where you're going to be living, and came out of it suggesting that temperature, that only looking at one factor is not sufficient, that temperature can affect so many other things like salinity and etc., that it really, that just because temperature changes, things can adapt to temperature change.
Okay.
Yeah. He had a line of genera through various different extinction potentials and showed a disconnect between temperate things, which all group together in a cluster in a line, versus equatorial and Arctic stuff in their own separate clusters of temperature tolerance versus
Well, that's
extinction.
because temperate climate is much more broad.
Yeah.
There's just more of it, and it's going to migrate easier.
Yeah.
If you're in the
Yes.
Arctic, you just fuck because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, it was interesting. As I said, I can't remember it very well off the top of my head, but I kind of walked away from it going, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to go to Michael Foot's talk so I can report back to you on that, but I was unfortunately still talking.
Yeah, I was interested, although I guess I can probably estimate that. I mean, the title of the talk was "The Genus: The Sum Is Not All of Its Parts." He was probably going to talk about the disconnects between species level analyses and genus level analyses. And honestly, I think if he was favoring the genus level, that would be a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way I think you'd favour I mean, I can see the appeal of doing genus level stuff because, hey, we're going to get continuous record for X number of million of years, and we can treat it as one thing. But it's just how much complete data matters to you.
Yeah, again, when you do that, you're just lopping off big chunks of information.
You were lopping off big chunks of information. As I said, depending on the patterns you want to be looking at, if the divisions between clades matter, like if you're looking at broader scale regional differences, like the old school Cox and Forty kind of biogeographic cluster analyses, where they were looking to see these clades share other similar clades, there's probably large biogeographic events that are causing shared history, and so I kind of see those things being very useful. So yeah, give and take, I guess. But ultimately, you always have to remember that a single species can be a genus, and 50 species can be a genus, because we make up what a genus is, which means at some level, it's arbitrarily defined.
The fascinating thing is that people have done studies and shown that there are patterns inherent in genera. This is because, at some level, first of all, at some level, because you're going to be picking up diluted patterns from the species level.
I really do think that is true.
Also, we're humans and we like to see patterns, so when we're naming genera, we're naming them based on perceived patterns that we can see, and you're then going to pick up those patterns when you analyze that.
Yes. I mean, it's still intrinsic in the taxonomic literature, the notion of a generic character. Like that there's some sort of larger character that doesn't vary across multiple things, and that it has meaning because it defines the genus as though the genus has meaning.
Yeah.
But, generally speaking, I actually kind of think that in a lot of ways, when people do use the genus as that sort of point, I think they fundamentally know that they're not really looking at something that is distinct or isn't there's an arbitrary element to it, but they think fundamentally that averaging out that data is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not going to miss the pattern. You're actually just going to see a broader pattern. And I don't know if that's... I'm on the fence as to whether or not I think that's legitimate all the time.
Well, would it also depend on exactly what you're looking for?
I think the biggest thing it depends upon is whether or not all your genera are monophyletic. If you're including a lot of genera that are paraphyletic or polyphyletic, you're going to get patterns that aren't fucking real, because you're not actually averaging species at that point. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why you need a more modern phylogenetic view of taxonomy.
Yeah.
So I think those were the only major talks that I went to that you guys had all stepped on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that there were any
Oh,
others.
wait, no, there was one more. There was a talk discussing reviewing the end Cretaceous mass extinction event as two pulses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to go see that one.
Okay.
So it was okay. I don't want to be... I don't want to be hyperbolic or make mean-spirited jokes here. And
when do we do anything else here?
No, I mean, in this, we don't pick apart someone's talk specifically.
True.
But this was just all text. Just
seriously?
A straight slide with all text, no figures, and he would click and then read the text. But he would read it in this somber it's 24 hours until the White House has been destroyed. I mean, not quite like that, but it was all that was running through my fucking head. And so it's just a lot of white text and just, we believe that this happened. And then this, and it's like the asteroid hit. It caused a massive fireball that engulfed the Earth. Only things that were buried under the sand could survive.
Well, that's not true.
That is why we see a preference, or underwater, that is why we see a preference of burrowing type creatures.
Why do we still have fucking plants?
And nothing larger than a squirrel.
Why do we still have plants?
Then nuclear winter set in, which only affects the marine realm, not the freshwater realm. And that's the second pulse of extinction.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, I didn't see this
wait,
talk. That's
was
crazy, and that's not what we see.
That was literally the guy's
That's why there was no data.
He said the entire terrestrial realm was killed off in an hour. Within an hour. Yeah. And then there was a protracted 2 months later nuclear winter killed off the majority of the marine realm.
The majority, that.
But freshwater things were saved because I think it was an acidification issue.
Yeah.
Don't trim that silence. That needs to last.
Yeah, that'll last for as long as possible. Well, it's not gonna be silence. It's just gonna be Amanda snarkily smacking her teeth into the fucking mic.
Yep.
No. Nah. No.
Yeah, so I went to that talk.
Yeah.
Now I wish I would have gone, because I can guarantee you that I just would have been sitting there with my jaw hanging open in shock the entire time.
I mean, no one gave questions, and then he just left.
Probably better that way.
I mean, if you want to go up there, he's older gentleman, just come up. I've got a theory, and just say it. I kind of, in a weird way, appreciate that.
That's a fair enough point. I mean, if he's a guy whose reputation is already established and he doesn't have to worry about fucking himself over, then yeah, sure.
But yeah, he didn't have any
data. No.
Really. He had a story, and he walked us through the story and how it fit the examples of the spherules. But yeah, as I said, it was kind of like...
I have a story. The dinosaurs got on a rocket, and the blowback from the engines created the crater in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they went to Pluto.
Okay, so this is like, this is Poochie the dog. I must return to my home planet?
Yes.
Okay.
Y'all need to read Dr. McNinja, because he actually talks about space dinosaurs.
I've read Dr. Meninja. There's the bucket list checked off, punch out a velociraptor.
Yes.
How are you looking at your recording, James?
It's looking good.
Okay, excellent.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you need to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So while James is going to the bathroom, Amanda, was there anything that you saw in any of those days that we totally didn't get to? Okay, he just no touched you.
I didn't. Fine.
No.
He just no touched me too. James.
That doesn't make it okay. Actually, no, because I think I talked about everything.
Okay.
In the last couple of days that I went to, and really, I don't feel like I've done all that much.
I feel like I went to 1 billion talks. I feel like this podcast has made me go to talks way more than I did. And I don't mean to say that I never went to talks. I just mean that I would occasionally go and look at posters or hang out at the sort of booth areas and talk to people. And this time I spent the majority of my time sitting in talks.
Yeah, I did that in the morning, but then I usually just take the afternoon and just be like, I'm gonna go look at posters.
Yeah, I missed all the paleoecology talks today. I mean, there was passing interest, but I thought the morphology stuff was maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
There were a few PCA posters that we looked at.
Yeah, I did look at a couple PCA posters, and the one that was interesting was one that looked at brachiopods, and it was just actually it wasn't even that interesting. But I talked to her about how she made the nice graphs because they looked a lot better than mine.
Wait! It was interesting. It wasn't really interesting.
It was brachiopods. I mean, brachiopods are cool, but I don't know that much about them. So I actually learned how to actually like do stuff with the graphs in Past now, and I need to play with that. So
yeah,
well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It was a study of a specific group to show that they were overlapping and that they weren't two different genera.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So again, getting back to what we previously stated, it's important when you're doing any higher level studies and assuming that you're summing stuff up. Oh, your foot hurts?
It's asleep.
Oh, asleep. Okay.
Do you want another blanket?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, James.
Yes.
What other things do you want to talk about?
We could cover some of the things that we didn't get to talk about yesterday because Dave suddenly had to vanish.
Dave suddenly had to vanish because his audio suddenly became completely unusable, and you were skipping ahead like a fucking Time Lord. But the audience isn't going to know that, except that I'm going to keep this in.
I have a Time Lord.
You have the scarf of one, too.
Indeed. I have a screwdriver that can fix many problems.
Mostly if something needs to be screwed in.
Stabbed.
Continuing your screwdriver fights.
Yeah. You okay there, Amanda?
I'm
I
fine.
can just see your legs now.
No, I'm fine. It's just that my leg is falling asleep, so if I stretch
don't
out,
want that.
it will help a
Okay,
little.
yeah, you stretch out.
Sorry, I'm sure that was a great sound that just came through because I moved my mic.
Okay, yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of good talks yesterday that we didn't get to cover. I can't remember what they were. There's a couple of arthropod ones. I think I got started on... Yeah, we talked about poop.
We talked about poop.
And then there was a follow-up talk to the poop talk.
Yeah.
And it was on great appendages, which I can't talk about too much because I gave a talk on them today.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
My legs cramped again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, it was actually a pretty good talk. There's some new material, many new fair few new species.
So this is something that I'm interested in. The brains, the position of the brain, the specimen that found a brain in.
Yes.
What does that tell you about limb position for these things?
Okay. So the arthropod brain, and I think we're hoping to do a separate podcast on this.
Yeah,
sort of
we
stuff.
are eventually, but
Yeah.
just I guess a primer. Consider that.
So the arthropod brain is sorted into 3 different segments, and based on which segment innervates or is the origination point for each limb, that tells you whether or not they're going to be homologous.
Okay.
So whether or not you should code them as or treat them as the same structure when looking at descriptions and phylogenetic analyses. And basically, the first part is the protocerebral, the second part is jutocerebral, and the third part is tritocerebral. There's a big debate about whether great appendages are homologous to the chelicerae, which
so basically just first brain, second brain, third brain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Forebrain, hindbrain, midbrain.
Forebrain, hindbrain, midbrain. Gotcha.
And basically most of these appendages come from the midbrain. However, there are an equal large amount that come from the hindbrain, and this is very interesting. And what he was showing us with these things, I think, is showing us both midbrain and hindbrain great appendages. And he was actually, to give him credit, beginning to differentiate between the two, which is really good because it can be very hard to do. The single greatest specimen I saw, though, he had a picture of this animal that had anomalocaudid-like appendages, great appendages, which are very unique and you can tell apart very easily. A bivalved carapace, which is a typical arthropod characteristic.
Yeah, I think we managed to talk about this one. This is the one that we said looked more like Diania than Diania.
Yeah, did that still make it in?
Yeah, I think that still made it in.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Yeah, and lobopod-like legs, so it's like a mixture of all 3.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah. There were other talks in the afternoon, I think, but I can't remember what they were.
I'm saying that's about it.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, so I guess overall, how was your meeting?
I want to go home.
I know, I'm sorry. I wish I could take you home.
I miss my cat.
I'm sure it misses you too.
Yes.
Well,
I'll look after it and send him lots of pictures of you. No, send you lots of pictures of him.
Send lots of pictures of you. How are you doing that?
Magic.
Well, he's a cat, so I can just send him the same picture each day. He's not going to notice.
A good point.
Yeah, that is actually a fair point.
Yeah, so no, I'll go and look after the cat. I'm just mostly exhausted, but I get this way at conferences.
Well, it's the 3rd day drag, right? Like, especially since this was something that a friend of mine was talking about. It's like, why the hell did they put the big receptions in the middle of the damn thing so that everyone's stuck out late just before the latter half of the talks? So today is when everyone usually goes to the alumni receptions and all the friends of X, and those don't get back till 1 or 2 in the fucking morning. And then you wake up early for talks and you feel like shit.
Yeah, and the other thing they don't tell you about conferences is because they insist on starting the sessions at 8, you have to be up at about 6.
Oh yeah, totally. And if you're an idiot like me and occasionally go out for a run early in the morning, then you're up even earlier.
Well, or if you're staying out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and you're nowhere near the goddamn conference center.
You're not staying at the Curtis.
You could have been staying at the Curtis.
Yeah, well.
You could have been sleeping right there.
You could have been sleeping in the Curtis.
Yeah, I would have been sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, you would have been. Sorry.
That's okay.
Whatevs.
All right, well, I guess this has been GSA, according to Paleo After Dark.
We're sorry, guys. We're very sorry.
I don't know why she's sorry. Do you know why she's sorry?
She's always sorry.
Good point.
That is true.
All right, well, I've been Curt.
I've been Amanda.
And James.
Signing off.
Okay, how does that sound? Okay, how does that sound? How does this sound? How does that sound? And if I shout, that red's out. Okay, so if I shout now, okay, that's yeah. Okay, shouting, being loud, and being quiet. No, being quiet. Louder. Ooh. Now, speaking normally.